Hello everyone, this video covers lecture notes for week number 7. The main objective of this lecture notes is the following. You're going to have a graph. It will give you a graph which is usually called f of x, and then you're either going to move the graph up, or you can move it down, or you can move it to the side, or you can make it smaller, or you can make it bigger. That's technically what we're going to do. And then, to make sure that whatever transformation you do, you have the correct function notation related to the original function, which is usually f of x. Here, notice how f of x, which is this one, and g of x are technically the exact same function. It was just moved to the left and then down. For now, let's pretend we didn't notice that, which is going to be one of the main things you need to know. So let's pretend that they are separate, and you actually have questions like this in one of the quizzes before and in the exam too. Notice that these are parabolas and they are going up. So for this one, the vertex is this point, which is the point -1, 5. So therefore the equation, since this is going up for g of x is going to be 1 times x minus 1 square plus 5. Remember the standard form for a function, you know, the vertex is equals to ax minus h squared plus k. So in this case, this one is h and this one is k. Hence the equation for g of x is just x plus 1 squared plus 5, which again you can see this is the minimum value. Alright, if we do the exact same thing for f of x, notice that the vertex for f of x is this one, which is 3, 10. So if we use the same formula, which is this, here the function for f of x is going to be x minus 3 squared plus 10. Now let's look to part C. Part C says the following. What can we do to the graph of g, which is this one, to make it into the graph of f? Remember, the two graphs are exactly the same. You just have to shift it. So how do we get from here to here? Well, clearly you have to shift to the right 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. So you have to shift to right by 4 units, and then once you move it up 4, you have to go up 5 units, and then up by 5 units, and then the graph will be in the exact same place. Now it's very important to notice that the right refers to the x, and the up refers to the y. Alright, so now this is the part where things get a little messy in the notation. It says find a formula for f of x in terms of g. Remember that to get f of x, what we did to g is you move it to the right. So you move it to the right, this is going to be negative, so this means to the right. And if it was to the left, it will be positive, and then we move it up 5 units. So this is up 5 units. Now remember that the function f of x is equals to x minus 3 squared plus 10. And thus this looks like this. Not quite, but they're actually the same. So here is where the function notation is going to become very, very useful. Remember that g is this function right here. So therefore, if you want to find g of x minus 4, you have to substitute in here x minus 4. So this will be x minus 4 plus 1, the whole thing square, and then plus 5, the 5 that you already have, plus this 5 from here. Okay. So just to make sure that this is clear, let me color code this. G of x minus 4, you have to use this formula and it will give you this match. So this phi corresponds to this phi right here. So this phi is this phi right here, and then here you have an extra phi. Notice that if you simplify this, is going to be x minus 3 squared plus 10, which is exactly the same thing as that. Okay, and this is pretty much the most difficult part for this section, to write a function in terms of the order. And this is going to be very important for what we're going to do in this section. All right, so let's try a few more. This one, they just give you a word problem and you have to rewrite it. So this is asking you, write a formula for the function f of x. So you're going to have f of x equals to something. So whose graph is the same as g of x. So notice here we don't even know what f or g is. It doesn't matter. All you need to know is that they are functions. So the conditions are that it has to be shifted down by 6 units and to the left by 5. Remember, if you're going to do to the left, this is going to be plus 5. So this is what it means to the left. And then shifted down, it's going to be minus 6. So this is down. Now it is asking if the letter G should appear in the formula. The answer is G. The answer is yes, because G is there. And the reason why we cannot do more from here, like we did in the previous page, is because we don't know what this function actually is. All we know is that these two functions are related by this. Or in other words, this function and this function are exactly the same, except that this one was shifted to the left and down 6. So this could be any function. So let's say that the graph looks like this. This was the original g of x. So then if you move it to the left 5 and down 6, you're gonna get a new graph, and it's going to be f of x. Now in part B, now they are specific. They actually tell you what g of x is. So if we use this now that we know what g is, then f of x is going to be 4 as x plus 5 that you already have there, square, plus 7. So this is g of x, and then you had to move it 6 units down. So this is the part where you move it to the left 5 units and this down 6. So therefore, if you simplify this, this will be 4 x plus 10 square plus 1. And notice how the letter G is not in the formula anymore. So for that to happen, they had to tell you exactly what G is, or the other function. All right, well, you didn't get that one. This is the chance to redeem your sins. So now f of x is going to be the same as the graph of g of x. So it's going to be g, except that is shifted down 6 units and to the left 5. So this will be x plus 5 and then 6, which are the same instructions as the other one. So therefore this is going to be 4 over x plus 5 squared minus 6, and there is no g here because this time it was given, so you know what actually g is. Alright, part D is a little more tricky, but it's the same idea. So here f of x is gonna be 4 x plus 5, since you're moving everything to the left 5 units, and then this will be x plus 5 plus 1 square, and then you're gonna shift it down by 6 units. So you simplify this, you end up with f of x equals to 4x plus 20 divided by x plus 6 square minus 6, and that's it. This one also there is no g in the function because g is given. Right, here it's asking you to match the following. So it says the graph of f is the same as the graph of g, except you shifted up only 5 units, so this is not left or right. So up 5 units will be this, down 5 units be this, to the left 5 units it will be that, to the right 5 units only it will be this, right 5 units and add 5 it will be this, and left 5 units and down 5 it will be this one. So you should stop the video and check all of those. Okay, so now we're gonna move from moving left and right or up and down to reflections. The first reflection is gonna be about the y-axis. Remember that this is the y-axis, and notice that if you were able to graph this graph and rotate it about the y-axis, you will end up with exactly this graph. So if you flip it around this axis, this will give you this, or if you reflect this on this axis, it will give you this one. So the question says, what can we do to the graph of g to make it into the graph of f? And the question is just reflected on the y-axis, but mathematically this will be g of x. This is the same thing as f of minus x, or you can say that f of x is g of minus x. In other words, when it's asking you fill in the blank, the graph of f is the same as the graph of g, except reflected across the y-axis. But it's very important and useful to note this relationship, which it should be clear once we complete these values right here. Okay, so here, if we want to complete this table first, f of negative 5, so when x is negative 5, f is 10. If f is negative 4, if x is negative 4, then the function is equals to 4. Right, and you can see here if x is 4, the value for g will also be 4, and clearly this will be 10. So therefore f of negative 5 is the same thing as g of 5, which is exactly what I was telling you right here. Okay, and f of negative 4 is the same thing as g of 4. So therefore g of x is the same thing as f of minus x. Therefore f of 100 is going to be the same thing as g of minus 100 if we were still using these two graphs. The last part here we already did. It says write a formula for f of x in terms of g of x. We already say that f of x is g of minus x. Alright, so now we have another example. where you had to find the reflection on the y-axis. So the question is, write a formula for the function f of x whose graph is the same as g of x except reflected on the y-axis. So automatically we had to go with this. This is the generic formula. So therefore f of x will be g or minus x. But g, we know what g is. G is equals to this. So this will be 4 over minus x squared. So therefore this is equals to 4 over x squared, which is exactly the same function. Now, should the letter g appear in the formula? The answer is no. Now, notice here the reflection gives you the exact same function. That usually happens when you have something that is called an even function. And an even function is something like this. Notice that if you reflect this one, you will end up with the exact same graph. That only happens if the function is even, which means this side and this side is the same. So if you flip it over, well, you will end up with the exact same graph. All right, so now let's move on to the reflection on the x-axis. Remember, these are the x-axis. So this point stays there, but you look to this point. This is 1, 2, so you're gonna go 1, 2. This is 1, 2, 3, so this will be 1, 2, 3, and so forth. This is 1.5, so it should be 1.5. So if we do the reflection on the x-axis, the graph looks like this, something like this. Okay, I'm sure you can do a better shape than I can, but this is the same idea. Okay, now, okay, so remember that the dotted line here is g, so the solid line is going to be now f of x. So let's complete a few values so you can see the connection between the two. All right, so if x is -3, which is here, the value for g will be, for f, sorry, will be -3. So notice how this value and these are the same, except that this is negative. Now, if x is 0 for this one, this is -3, but in our case, it will be 3 if we have done the graph correctly. Okay, so this will give you 3. So from here, you can see the connection right away. The f of x is going to be minus g of x. So if it is reflected on the x-axis, this is how you know. Therefore, f of -4 is going to be the same thing as g of -4. We can check that. If x is -4, the value for f is -2. So this is -2. But if the value for g when x is -4 is equals to 2. So this is -2, so it will give you -2. So that's how we know that this is correct. So therefore, f of 100 is going to be the same thing as minus g of 100. So these two have to be the same, and this will be negative. All right, so if you keep this in mind, this will make life pretty easy when they ask you about reflecting on the x-axis. So here the question now says, write a formula for the function whose graph is the same as g, but reflected on the y-axis. So therefore, f of x is going to be minus g of x. So in our case, this will be minus 4 over x squared. And that's it. Now, should the letter g appear on the formula? No, again, because you know what g is. All right, let's try one more. So here, f of x is going to be minus g of x. So it should be minus 3x squared minus 2x cubed. So this will be minus 3x squared plus 2x cubed. Again, this is reflection about the x-axis. Now, so that you can see the difference between the x and y axis, which we just did the y axis in the previous page. If I ask you about the y axis, then f of x will be g of minus x. So this will be the y-axis, so you can tell the difference. So in this case, this will be 3 times minus x squared minus 2 times minus x cubed. So this will be 3x squared plus 2x cubed. So this is reflected about the y-axis, and this is the x-axis. So it's a sign is in the different place, but it's very important you notice these differences. All right, in this table is checking to see you understand the function notation. First, it's asking you to put an x for all the formulas that do not represent h of x. This is not h of x, this is not h of x, and this is not h of x. And then, well, it says to circle them, so I guess we can circle them. And then to put an x to the ones that are nonsense. So this is nonsense because the 7x, this is also nonsense. Now, you should complete this table, but you can see here, so this is minus x, so this means reflected in the y-axis. Okay, so this one, because of the minus in front, is reflected on the x-axis, and then because of the plus 3 is shifted 3 to the left. Okay, so you should complete the rest. So it's very, very simple. Just a review of the stuff we've done so far. The last thing we're going to do is vertical and horizontal shrinking and stretching. And what that means is you will take a graph and you either make it skinnier or make it fatter or make it bigger or make it smaller. Okay, let's complete this table first. The absolute value minus 4 is 4. The absolute value minus 3 is 3. If you multiply that by 2, this will give you 8. It will give you 6. If you divide that by 2, this will give you 2, and this will give you 1.5. Okay, so now let's do the graphs. So g of x is already here. So this represents this graph. So now let's graph f of x. So you still have 0, 0. And then if this is 1, this will give you 2. And this is 2, this will give you 4. 3 will give you 6. 4 will give you 8. Okay. And in the negative side, it's the same idea. So this will be the function f of x now. And notice how the y values are actually just multiplied by 2. So therefore, f of x is going to be 2 g of x. So this means that y values are multiplied by 2. And this is what we're going to call horizontal, vertical stretch. As you can see, it's stretching vertically. It's the same graph, you just move it vertically. Okay, now if we plug in h of x, this one is still 0, but now for 1 this will be half, for 2 this will be 1, and for 4 this will give you 2. So now this will be the graph for h of x. And you can see how that one has been shrunk vertically. So therefore, h of x is going to be equals to 1/2 whatever g of x was. So therefore, know that multiplying g of x by 2 makes the graph, and then in this case is stretched vertically by a factor of 2. Alright, so now let's look to horizontal shrinking and stretching. So here it gives you the graph of g of x, and it's asking you to find a function f of x whose graph is the same as this, but is shrunk horizontally by a factor of 1/2. Now this is a little confusing when it's horizontal. So the function actually means this. Horizontal means that f of x is going to be equals to g of 2x. That's what it means by shrinking by a factor of 2. So technically what you do is you halve the values of x. Okay, so again, this is probably the most difficult thing to see of the whole video. So therefore, if we use this, let's complete this part first. So f of 1, -1 will be the same thing as g of 2, and f of 2 will be the same thing as g of 4. This one should be 4, this should be 2, this is obviously 0, this will be 2, and this will be 4. So therefore, if we want to do the graph, well, f of 0 and g of 0 are the same, but then f of 1 is the same thing as g of 2. But remember, g of 2 is equals to 5, so that means that f of 1 will give you 5. And then f of 2 is the same thing as g of 4, but g of 4 is 17, so this one will go here. Same thing here by symmetry, and then -2, this will give you 17. So this is what we mean by horizontal shrink by a factor of 1/2. So therefore the conclusion, which I already told you on the top, the function f of x is the same thing as g of 2x. Now let's look to horizontal stretching. So we want to write a formula whose graph is the same as g of x, but stretching horizontally by a factor of 2. So therefore h of x is going to be whatever g was, but you're going to divide the values for x by 2. Technically this is doubling the x values. Okay. Right, let's try one more. This one says shrunk horizontally by a factor of 1/3. So therefore here f of x will just be g of 3x. Should we write the letter g? Yes, because we don't know what the actual function is in this case. Now for the next part, we actually know what the function is. So therefore, if we want to find this will be equals to 4 over 3x squared, and this will be 4 over 9x squared. In this case, no, because we know what g is. Now here is the connection with vertical shrinking. For this function, shrinking the graph horizontally by a factor of 1/3 gives the same picture as shrinking the graph vertically by a factor of 3. Alright, finally this table is just a summary of everything we did. So for example, this one says shift the graph of g of x down by 3. So therefore f of x will be just g of x minus 3. And then what you do is you subtract 3 to the output of g. Alright, then this one is telling you to shift to the left by 4, so this will be g of x plus 4. And then just write it out. Now reflect the graph of g across the x-axis. Remember that means f of x equals to minus g of x. You want to reflect on the y-axis, this is equals to g of minus x. And then the rest, you should try it. So here it says stretch the graph of g of x vertically by a factor of 6. So there should be 6x, 6 times g of x. This one says shrink by a factor of 1/7. And this one is stretch the graph g of x horizontally by a factor of 8. So just try these two as practice. Complete this also as part of the your practice or your homework in some sense. And if you have any questions on that, we can go over this later, either in class or in the office hours. But just complete this, and that one. And that's it.